Hi, you've tuned in to Ask Dr. Kat on Bellevue TV. I'm Dr. Katherine Williams, and for the past several weeks, we've been talking to a lot of parents, a lot of teachers, certainly a lot of politicians, but we haven't spoken yet to that critical group of people who are directly in charge of our kids' schools. And so tonight, we're bringing to you an elementary school teacher from San Diego, California, Principal Nona Richard. Hi, how are you?
Hi, thanks for having me here.
Oh, we're so excited to have you here. And to that end, I've also brought a guest co-host, Michelle Woodhouse. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to talk to Principal Richard tonight.
Yeah. So, Michelle, you do a lot of community organization, working with nonprofits. Is that correct? And you're also a parent of a couple of children in the public school system in San Diego. Is that right?
That's right. I have one daughter that's in the public school system and one that's in preschool, so future public school student.
So you're really wondering what's going on, too, in the schools, it sounds like.
Absolutely. I'm always kind of waiting with bated breath on what's coming next, and so I'm really excited to have an opportunity to chat with Principal Richard. This is great.
I think a lot of parents have been. Principal Richard, I imagine that you've been hearing from a lot of parents over the course of the summer. And little birdies tell me that you have not had much of a break this summer. You've been pretty much working throughout the summer. Is that right?
It's been an interesting summer. I have to say I am up for the challenge, and I do have a lot of friends out there, Dr. Kat. Quite a few people want information and are emailing and are certainly concerned about what's going to happen in just a few weeks now.
Yeah. So if you don't mind, let's go ahead and get started. And let's ask that question. What is it going to look like? What is school going to look like on August 31st in San Diego?
Well, I can't tell you for sure what school will look like in all parts of San Diego, but I can tell you at our school, in the beginning of the year, actually teachers and students and parents will open the school week with a series of professional development and training opportunities. So August 31st is the launch of our school year, and students will meet with their teachers online for a short time, but then they'll also have access to a variety of trainings to give us a big kind of boot camp experience for distance learning and get us in the right mindset for what's to come. Yeah, so online learning, it will have several components, and starting the second week of school in the public school system in San Diego Unified, students will receive 6 hours of instruction a day. And part of that time will be with a whole class. Some of that time will be with small groups. Some of that time may be a one-on-one with their teacher. Some of that time might be independent work. And also some of that time might be uploading documents so that teachers can provide feedback. So it definitely has different flavors throughout the day, not just straight Zooming, but we think it will be a robust and meaningful experience for kids.
I know that that's one of the areas of concern that a lot of parents have talked about is, how is my kid going to sit there, on a screen, for 6 hours straight? I think that was the initial thing I heard a lot of is 6 hours of Zooming time. And parents were concerned about that. But rest assured, that's certainly not the case in San Diego anyways.
No, and I don't think anybody should Zoom for 6 hours straight. I mean, adults, we try it all day long, and, we have to remind each other to get up, to take breaks, to keep things in perspective, to walk around, to take calls while we're on the phone, and sort of mix it up. And so we wouldn't want our students to sit through 6 hours of Zoom instruction either. It's not appropriate for them.
Yeah, I can definitely understand that. I've worked in remote environments for many, many years, and just as an adult, I was like, oh, this is really rough, every day, long periods of time. But it sounds really great that students will have an opportunity to have a little bit of flexibility. It's going to look a little bit different. So I think that's really great. And I'm curious, Principal Richard, Nona, could you share with us a little bit about maybe what you think your top priorities are when school's going to start?
Absolutely. In the regular school year, when we're on site, the first few weeks, even the first month, was really devoted to community building. So we know that students have a harder time taking risks or being vulnerable. And we know that when they feel connected to those around them, that they're heard and valued and trusted, they're more willing to take a chance and get an answer wrong. And we know that when students are learning, there's actually an amount of discomfort that exists because it's hard to learn new things and it may not come easily. And so my priority for the beginning of school is to make sure that teachers and students are building relationships, and that they're finding meaningful ways for that to happen, even when they're not in the same room together. So after that, of course, we're right into instruction. We need our kids to receive everything that they would in the regular school setting. But of course, we don't get far without connection.
We heard that loud and clear from our teachers for our Teachers Talk episode. Was that relationship was what that was clearly first and foremost in their mind of how are they going to kind of build that relationship with their students, because it sounds like that's really the foundation to any learning that's going to happen.
It is, and we know how to do that. We're better at that when we're face-to-face, when we're on site. So teachers need some professional development and what that looks like online. So again, that's offering students choice, even assigning students jobs as they would have in the regular classroom, calling students by name, making sure each morning everyone is greeted. All of those are really important pieces to have in creating that connection in classroom community.
Who's providing that professional development, Nona?
Well, that's really exciting because that first 10 sessions that teachers are expected to participate in the first week and a half of their calendar year are going to be essential. So the district is working, I heard yesterday, from 4 a.m. to 11 p.m. everybody on the weekends to really have some robust training opportunities. I had the privilege of attending professional development for principals yesterday, and it was so nice to know that a lot of research has been conducted just in this short time period. So we do have more data-based, fact-driven examples of what works for kids in distance learning.
That's really great. And I love that, the district did a really good job of trying to reach out and find out what worked and what didn't. And it sounds like, you all are taking action on all of those insights. So it's great to hear that, the plans are going to be kind of data-driven. That's really exciting. I'm curious if you could share a little bit about what parents could be doing to prepare in anticipation for the school year.
Sure. So I think first, parents and all of us have to remember to practice great self-care because in preparing for this school year, we have to anticipate that it's maybe stressful. Parents are working at home at the same time. And so approaching the new school year with an attitude of grace and a remembrance that finding time for ourselves is going to be critical. And then after that, we need parents to help students have a learning center, a space where they feel comfortable, where they can keep their supplies, has good lighting, a comfortable seat. I've seen a lot of situations where a parent will be working from home in one part of the office, and a child will have his or her own desk, a couple feet away. And it really creates this special learning environment for students and for parents together. I also think it's important to get back into those routines, right? We all do better when we go to bed at the right time, when we wake up at the right time, and making sure that we are following a schedule with having some breaks throughout the day, eating lunch at a regular time. All of those pieces will help people feel prepared for what's ahead.
So you mean we can't go to bed at 4 o'clock in the morning and wake up at 2 p.m. anymore?
You can, but not me. I just, back to reality. And we don't recommend that, Dr. Katz. We go well next day.
I can promise you we have parent viewers out there that are like, darn it.
I'm one of them. I'm like, no. Yeah, it'll be an adjustment, but that's really good tips for us.
One of the things that, as you were talking, Nona, I was kind of something that I've been thinking about when parents have talked to me about being concerned about whether or not, this school day via Zoom is going to be close enough to a face-to-face. And then I have some parents who are very concerned about all the academics, that their kid's going to get. Are they going to be able to pay attention the whole time? Are they going to be able to stay focused, because of screen fatigue? And one of the things that I think of is, we shouldn't expect more, right, from Zoom. So I think of, I got to imagine, my kid did not pay attention. I can promise you I'm sure his and her teachers are nodding right now. They didn't pay attention the entire school day. They didn't pay attention the entire 50 minutes of a subject. They would perhaps, pay attention and then zone out a little bit or look at somebody else, another student, or maybe fiddle, with their fingers, get up a little bit, and go for a walk if they're allowed to get, if they're pretending to sharpen their pencils, for example. And I just think I have to remind myself that I imagine they're going to do that also via Zoom, and not to have higher expectations that they stay seated, because now I can see them, versus them being at school, right? That they have to stay seated and completely focus on the teacher the entire time and not pay attention to what their classmates are doing. And so to kind of give a little bit of leeway. And when you said grace, that also reminds me of that too. It's kind of giving them some grace there.
Well, I think students will actually learn better if they feel they have some choice. And so there may be a portion of the lesson where we are expecting students to give their full attention. But certainly it wouldn't be appropriate for that to be the entire 45-minute lesson. So with some common expectations and understandings of why it's important to really tune in to this next 8 minutes, and whether that's the student standing in front of their computer or sitting in the chair, those are options. Putting a timer on when we go into independent practice, and knowing that, the expectation is that if the student needs to get up and sharpen a pencil or get a drink of water and come back, the timer shows you has 15 minutes to get a certain number of problems done and then a check-in. So I think that being flexible and, again, allowing the grace and the autonomy, giving students some choice in there, really helps them feel that they can be in control of their learning and they can understand what their needs are to perform at their best level. We've found a lot of students to have done really well in distance learning because having this sort of choice is helpful. Being comfortable in their home environment is helpful. And, there's a certain amount of increased accountability when you have a parent looking at you as well. So I think those are all pluses, some of the silver linings that have come out of this experience for educators and families.
Yeah. I've heard similar things from many parents too. And then of course, that the kids are actually surprisingly doing better with this. And then of course, I've also heard in the last week, as across the nation schools have started opening up, I belong to a few of the parent forums and have heard or seen posts from parents that are just, like, I just broke down today, or, I'm crying, or, and I think that when you said give yourself some grace and, self-care, and when I read those posts, it really takes me back to, spring learning, where I had days where I felt like I got this, and then other days, sometimes right after I got this, and I assume that I have this for the rest of the time, sometimes it was the very next day where I just felt like, oh my God, I am such a failure as a parent. Like, this is not, what am I doing wrong here? And it takes me back to that time, what the nice thing is that I've had days after that where it went better, and so it's just sort of reminding myself, there are going to be good days and there are not, and there are going to be days that are more challenging. And so when you have those challenging days where you feel like you really failed here, or, you can't do this, to remember this is temporary, this is transient. And to give yourself that grace that you were talking about.
Yeah, I love that too, and I absolutely felt the same, like definitely the highs and lows, when you're starting something new, it's all part of, the experience of change, right? And I think it's sort of nice that we've had a little bit of a test case of like, what it kind of looked like. But it sounds like, online learning is going to be, I think, more robust. It's going to be different. I feel like we've kind of learned some lessons. And so I'm hoping it's going to be even better, and perhaps there's even some opportunities for, carrying on some of the things that like have become the silver linings. Like you mentioned that. I'd love to know a little bit more about what you think are some of those silver linings, Nona.
Well, I think, everyone's experience with online learning is really different according to, other outside issues, right? So if parents are fortunate enough to have an occupation that allows them to work partly from home or be more flexible, I don't think you can do it wrong. I mean, the tough days we'll all get through, and our students are going to be fine. I worry more about students who don't have that support at home and how online and distance learning is affecting them. But, a silver lining involves, I have a good friend who is a parent and also a homeschool teacher now with his kindergartner at home. And, it's been amazing to watch that kindergartner develop skills as a writer from March to June. And because, usually that parent might be out of the home traveling, might not get to watch his child make progress in writing development across those few months. It's sort of a magical experience. I mean, that's why educators go in, because we love watching students make that progress and watching things connect, watching children take risks to use their sound spelling to write down the words that they want to express. And so a silver lining would be that you get to share that experience. And that's a gift, right? That normally we see as teachers and that parents don't get to see. Also, parents have taken more of a role even over the summer to continue some of those practices that they were learning that teachers have taught them. So whether it's a particular writing strategy or doing a math activity, they're more involved with children's learning than ever before. I also think we've done some creative things with meeting and bringing staff together. So when people can connect virtually, conversations occur a lot more naturally, and it gives us more flexibility. When we have individualized education plans and we're discussing children's learning needs, sometimes it can be very difficult to accommodate schedules, but being able to host our meetings in this capacity has really given us the chance to talk more about what will work best for students, and that's a blessing. Yeah.
Nona, if I could just change the topic just a little bit.
Sure.
I know that Michelle and I were looking at your virtual background there. Can you where was that? That's a photo of yours, or?
Yes, I've had a blank screen for far too long. So now I'm going to remember when I used to be able to travel before. So I like to do a lot of trekking and international travel, but this one was Kilimanjaro, one of my favorite trips. And if you haven't been to Tanzania or Kilimanjaro yet, I just highly recommend it. So it hasn't happened this summer, but definitely a fun place and a nice place to camp for the night on the trek up. Mm-hmm.
So I've always wondered, how do you do it as a school principal? Because there are so many stakeholders you have to answer to, and it seems so challenging to me. And now I know why. It's because you've been able to climb Kilimanjaro.
Yeah.
That's all I gotta do.
That's all you gotta do. It's fun. It's over multiple days, but it's great. It's hard to check email on Kilimanjaro. It doesn't go as well. You carry the minimal necessities up there, and so laptop stays home. But yeah, it's a good place to get away.
Where did you grow up?
So I'm a native San Diegan. I grew up in a small town called Alpine. It's heading east towards the mountains, Laguna Mountains. And, when I was growing up, people walked their pigs on the side of the street for fun, they rode horses. We had no stoplights. So I guess I'm really dating myself, but it was quite a small community and a really quaint place to grow up. Mm-hmm.
Pigs.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. I have family in Alpine.
Yes.
Yeah. So I always had an opportunity to spend some time in Alpine. So it's such a fun, small world, but it is a lovely, lovely community. So, but that's neat that you like had pigs and stuff like walking around. I don't know that I saw that, but yeah, that's really cool.
I grew up with cows and pigs and chicken, and I woke up to the cock-a-doodle-doo, the rooster in the morning. So definitely a family farm experience, but no animals now. That's
yeah.
Well, probably not little known fact, but especially out here in La Jolla, there are families with chickens in their yards.
It's fairly popular, creating the chicken coop. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's good. I like it. I've had students bring me eggs, fresh eggs before. There's nothing like it. So, yeah, it's nice.
And I do know of another Torrey Pines family who has a pig, also a couple goats.
So there you go.
Many chickens, yeah. I do know Alpine. I'm from San Diego too. Since fourth grade, and what I know Alpine as is that great stopping point to get bread before you get to Julian apple pie. I'm all about the food. So.
I thought you were going to say the casino, Dr. Kat, the VBA House. That put us on the map. But the bread too.
Yeah, it didn't come out till later, right?
Yeah. That's true. I think there was a bakery there, and then there was a little restaurant at one time. Now, we're also known for the beer, Alpine Beer Company. Yeah, I
did not know this.
Oh, yeah. You can Google that. So, couple claim to fame.
Stop the beer before
so
you go.
while you were in Alpine, so what were you like as a kid when you were living in Alpine?
So that's good, because I don't want to give anybody idea that I was out there with the chickens and cows. I was in my room assigning myself homework. So I taught my cabbage patches. I had them all lined up around the corner of my room, positioned just so. And I gave them homework, and I did homework myself, and I taught them on my whiteboard. My brother would come by and knock on the door and say, "No one's in there," because I was playing with my cabbage patches and myself. But I definitely was born to be a teacher and educator, and you can't get away from that. I tried to go to law school, but I just couldn't get away from being drawn back to work in education.
So ever since you were very young, you knew you wanted to be a teacher.
I did. My mom was a teacher. My aunt was a teacher. I remember being in elementary school and going to all of their back to school nights. So I was just fascinated with school. I mean, I think learning is just so important, and it's a gift to be around other people, other educators who also value the importance of learning, and finding a community to work in and to serve is also such a gift.
Wow. So why the switch to elementary school principal?
I'm always like a challenge, and I feel like it's keeps me on my toes. And so after I'd been a teacher for 10 years, teaching in a lot of different capacities, so all grades, kinder through fifth grade, in El Cajon, in Vista, in Rancho Santa Fe. I felt like I needed to share more knowledge and learn more about how I could impact students. And I always had wanted to get my doctorate in education. And so I'd applied for a doctoral program, and they said, "Well, we can't really accept you. You won't have much to talk about. Your conversations will be richer." So I ended up going into an administrative credentialing program, and I had taken a test to become a principal. You can actually take a test and not take the classes. So I had taken the test, but when I applied to get into a doctoral program, at this particular program said, "Well, go do an actual administrative program." So I did that, and it's just been the best part of my life, becoming a principal. I really love it.
That's so cool. And so although you didn't do that PhD program, you're doing one now?
Oh, yes.
You needed more to do on top of being a full-time principal.
Michelle, such an underachiever over here.
Almost done. But I find it really fascinating. So I ended up doing a PhD instead of an EDD because I felt like the research base was so much richer. And this program is a joint program between SDSU, where I worked on my admin credential, and then Claremont Graduate School. So a lot of policy decisions come out of there. And it's just fascinating. It's been a great experience to learn about, all different dimensions of education and really understand the pedagogy behind it and how that impacts what we're, the realities of our education system and what we're struggling with today. Yeah.
It seems almost even broader. Is that a right way of describing it? Like an even broader degree, this doctorate?
I think so. So an EDD program is designed for maybe an administrator, a career administrator. So you come in right away looking at what the dissertation will be about, and you work in a cohort. And the PhD program, at least this one, allows me to have a lot of choice. So I've been able to take classes that might not fit in a regular 3-year track for an EDD because I'm not in a cohort, have a lot more flexibility. So that's been fun. I always enjoy learning new things, and it's sort of a gift to be a student again and be the one to just read books and talk about them because so much of our day-to-day experience isn't about pleasure reading or deep conversation. We're so into being prepared for the next task at hand. This gives me a time to think a little bit more deeply about things I'm interested in. Yeah.
I love that you make it sound like self-care.
Yeah.
So this Claremont is a part of LA. So I would drive up for my weekend vacation, school vacation, a Friday night, until 10 p.m. and then a day of Saturday. So I'd get to stay in a hotel overnight. So I told my professors that it was like my weekend retreat, to more school. But if you haven't been to Claremont, the Claremont colleges are up there. They're lovely, and they call it the city of trees and PhDs. So it's beautiful. Makes me feel like I'm in college again, for the weekend. But it's been a good experience, and that's what we want our kids to have, right? Is that like lifelong curiosity about wanting to learn more and understand more about thinkers, and use what's been out there and developed and thought of in the past to help solve current problems, right? So I hope that in some way we can model, being a lifelong learner and making that a priority in one's trajectory. Mm-hmm.
So when do we get to call you Dr. Richard?
Mm. Well, I'm ABD, all but dissertation.
Oh,
so, so I'm hoping to defend my proposal within the next couple of months. And then if all goes well, I'd like to submit my my dissertation draft in January for its first review. So maybe, if all goes well, April or May. But, I think what we've all learned during this time of pandemic is we focus on what we need to get done in that day. And we learn to live with uncertainty, and we adjust our plans because ultimately we're not really in control of them. So, I'd like to be done with it as soon as possible. I have a much more balanced life, but I'm open to whatever is available. And I think really what matters to me most right now is getting this school year off to the best start possible. And I'm really excited to see what the next few weeks hold for us. And so that's my focus right now. That's really where my attention has been. Day in, day out.
Yeah. And Michelle, I'd like to invite you. There was a question when Michelle and I were talking about this before on the show, and she had a question for you. And I just loved it so much. And Michelle, I can invite you to ask that as our closing question for today. I know we could talk for another 10 hours.
Yes.
I want to hear more stories of your chickens and your pigs and your Cabbage Patch dolls. But we're mindful of your time too, because I know that you're really busy right now, still getting ready for the school year. So, Michelle?
Sure. So I was thinking, like, if Principal Richard had a magic wand, what would public education look like in the next few years? If you could just wave it, what do you think it might look like?
And this is a magic wand, right?
So
Yeah.
your vision.
They can like grow resources and have funds appear and have opportunities manifest themselves. So, I mean, education is filled with so many well-meaning people, and we're here because we have hearts and we care about kids. And I think that we struggle sometimes because we just don't have enough funding to do everything it is that we know kids deserve. And so sometimes our hands are tied, and we have to get creative. And I think it can be trying because sometimes we see a solution or a need, but it's not available for us, right? And so I think we in education have to remind ourselves that we do the best we can with what we have, but I bet all of us would ask for a magic wand for infinite resources. And again, then we could address, issues of inequity and of making sure that kids get what they deserve. And then also, I would say that sometimes in education, we forget what best practices are. So, being in this online learning experience has reminded us of the importance of connection, has reminded us of the importance of having a clarity of purpose in a lesson, of providing really specific, just next step feedback. And I think that sometimes if there's the newest or greatest idea or modality out there, we can get off track, and that doesn't serve kids in the end. And so infinite resources and a data-driven best practice approach to instruction, those would be my greatest wishes for education.
Well, I'll tell you, my kids will say the same thing then in our household. They love infinite resources, and mom's always talking about data-driven stuff. So
there you go.
It's the golden ball, right? Well, thank you so much, Nona. I'm so appreciative of you coming on and talking about your wishes for the year, your best hopes, as well as telling us a little bit about your background. I think that, just love that so much, to have that kind of more well-rounded, kind of deeper understanding